the fruit farmers, who need a workforce and struggle to find it every year. We need to have a legal guest worker program that meets their needs, that is fair to Americans who want to work there first. And if they can't find Americans to go elsewhere to get a legal guest worker, bottom line though is you do not reward illegal conduct. If you give amnesty, a pathway to citizenship, whatever you want to call it, you're rewarding illegal conduct. You're saying to those who violate the law, you get away with it, and you encourage more of it. And it's terribly unfair to those who are waiting in line for years to come here legally, and allowing those who jump the line to be rewarded by being able to stay. It's a matter of fairness to those who play by the rules. Thank you.
Mr. Monighan?
An open border is a breach of national security. It's the #1 issue that we need to face. It's critical that we address it. There's basically an open invasion going on across the border of Mexico and America. And it's critical. And it's the only job of the federal government. It's one of the only jobs the federal government's supposed to be doing, and they're not doing it. The other thing I'd like to say about the Second Amendment is, I'd like to say about the Second Amendment is the federal government doesn't give you the right, or doesn't give you the permission to own a weapon. It's your right. It's an unalienable right, and as a person, that can't be taken away from you by the federal government. It's called the Constitution. Thank you.
Mr. Sanders?
This is, I think, is ground for where compromise often happens. Todd and I agree on a lot of these principles that we need to do. We need a comprehensive immigration policy. And one thing that's not comprehensive is the law that is passed in Arizona, because that law interferes with every other law across the borders. We need to have one policy across the board that can be enforced by the federal government. Agree or disagree with the bill itself, the policy itself, the law itself, you just can't do it. It can't be done fairly for our community. More importantly, though, immigration is one of those things. A quick story. Because I was studying abroad from Dickinson College and a great international education, I met a young French woman and started dating her. We almost got married, but ended up splitting up at some point. But she lives in Washington, D.C. now. And she has spent probably about $35,000 working to get her green card. Now, let me be clear about this. Do you know any fruit picker who can afford $35,000 to get a legal green card? It's not possible. This is the problem with the immigration system. It's too complex for the lower income jobs. And those are the jobs that most of these illegal immigrants are coming to do. So until we address the fact that the cost and the structure and the problem of getting legal, we're not going to do it. Which is why I think a guest worker program is a very good idea. But it's very important that we focus on what actually the problem is. Because if we start yelling about drugs and Mexicans and start putting race and other colors into this, we're distracting from the real issue. It's an economic issue. People in another country want to do work that people in this country don't want to do. And it makes economic sense for us to accept these people on a guest status and allow them to go home. So I'm very frustrated with hearing the right-wing debate that is going on constantly that prevents us from having a serious debate on how to improve access for individuals to get their immigration and green card. That's what this country is made for. That's what it's founded.
Mr. Platts,
Thank you. The biggest obstacle I've seen in Congress to having a true debate, dialogue on comprehensive immigration reform has been, unfortunately, my colleagues in the Hispanic caucus. The speakers, in essence, given the caucus a veto over any bill coming before the floor dealing with immigration. So when we got close in a bipartisan way with Bart Stupak from Michigan, myself, and other Democrats and Republicans to get a reform of our guest worker program to deal with one segment, one part of the problem. The reason we didn't get a vote on the floor, even though it was about legal immigration, was because the Hispanic caucus refused to say, yep, we're okay with moving that, because unless they get a bill that has a pathway to legal presence or citizenship for those here illegally, they won't agree to any immigration reform. The speaker's given them that authority. That's wrong. It should be the will of the people through the majority of the House, not a select few being given a veto right over any issue dealing with immigration. We need to truly be about dialogue and working together. That's not what we have today under Speaker Pelosi.
Mr. Monighan?
Once again, open borders, breach of security. It's the federal government's job to do that. I'm also, in support of legal immigration. My family came here many years ago the same way, and is way too difficult, way too complicated for people that want to come here to seek liberty to actually arrive in this land as legal citizens. We should do more within our power as a union, 50 states, to make it possible for those individuals. Thank you.
Mr. Sanders?
I am hearing a lot of excuses. I hear it's Nancy Pelosi's fault. I hear it's the Hispanic caucus's fault. I hear it's everybody else's fault but mine. I respect Platts' opinions and his positions, but what I don't think we're getting is the leadership we need that can get these solutions. We need somebody who's going to get in there and find the solution that actually causes us to turn these answers to us. We need somebody who, when they have the majority in the House, actually get these bills passed. Mr. Platts has been in office for 10 years. Where was the health care bill? Or then, that's an aside, but where was the immigration bill as well? In fact, neither of these bills came up. A true leader brings those issues up and gets them pushed through. And quite frankly, I can give excuses to the end of the day why I'm not a millionaire, but that doesn't make me a millionaire.
Okay, the next question from the audience is right up this end. It has to do with partisanship in Congress, and the order will be Mr. Monighan, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Platts. The question is, do you think American politics has become too partisan? What should be done about it, Mr. Monighan?
Going on and watched the vitriol being spewed, and I got disgusted. I've watched it from really since 1993, 92, when Bill Clinton came into office, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And I'm flabbergasted because we, as a community, we're all on the same team. And at the end of the day, we need good schools, we need healthy families, we want a good job, fair shot at trying to do something. But our leaders in Washington, D.C. seem to forget that. They seem to think that it's somebody else's fault if we're not getting something done. But you know where the buck stops? The buck stops with the leaders we've elected. And it's our job, if our leaders aren't doing it, to put somebody in place who will. And that's why I'm running for Congress, because I do not see the leadership as bringing the bipartisan solutions, and bringing these offers for us that will provide what we need as a community. From that point to the end of the day, I intend to vote, not along party lines, but along what the people need in this community. If you look through the history of how many Platts have voted, you'll notice that it's consistently voting on party lines. Party lines don't help us. They don't help us create compromise. They don't help us create solutions. They help us get nothing but defeat for each other. Republicans aren't the devil. Democrats aren't evil. We're all on the same team in this. Until we realize that, until we all come together as a community, we're not going to get to that point. So that's why I'm running. I want your support across the board, because we need to come together.
Mr. Platts?
Thank you. I always believe that actions speak louder than words. So I asked you to look at my voting record. Look at the major issues where I was one of 20, maybe 30 of the entire Republican conference that joined with Democrats. Just recently, I was the lead Republican, joining with my Democrat colleagues on reauthorization of the Child Nutrition Act. In fact, I believe I remained the only Republican sponsor of that bill, because I am one to cross party lines. If you look at fuel efficiency, first time in 30 years we increased fuel efficiency for passenger vehicles. I partnered with Ed Markey, my Democratic colleague from Massachusetts. That's now the law today. We worked hand in hand. It was the majority of the votes were Democrats, but the 30-some votes we got on the Republican side were critical to its passage. FDA regulation of tobacco. If you ask Republicans, there's probably not a more partisan Democrat viewed by most than Henry Waxman from California. I was a lead Republican, partnered with Henry in getting, for the first time ever, tobacco regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. Stood at the President's side in the Rose Garden. The bill was signed into law last summer. When I agree with the President and the Democratic leaders, I will stand with them on the policy before us. When I disagree with them, I'll make it clear why I disagree with them on the policy before us. I don't engage in partisan attacks. I focus on the policy of the issues before us and what it means to the American people. If I think it's good policy in the best interest of you and all of America, I'm going to support it. If that means I'm with my leaders or against my leaders. I guarantee you, when I voted for the direct student loan legislation in committee, I think I was one of two, maybe, Republican members of the House Education Committee that voted for that. Guarantee it, my leadership didn't like that vote. It was the right vote. It was about saving almost $90 billion to American taxpayers and reinvesting that in early education and higher student assistance for higher ed students. It was the right thing to do. So, if you look at voting records, look at the entire voting record, and you'll see a lot of bipartisanship. I would call it nonpartisanship. It's about the issue, not about party.
Mr. Monaghan?
Party principles aren't the most important thing that should be addressed in D.C. The individuals and individual rights should be the number one thing. Thank you.
Mr. Sanders?
Yeah, I guess part of the problem is, yes, who here disagrees with the fact that the child nutrition program is probably an essential part of what we need to vote for? That's not a debate. I don't think we even need to question that. This is the problem where Mr. Platts votes for our easy vote getters. He can claim that he's bipartisan, but in the end of the day, that's not what it is. It's finding areas where you can triangulate. Bill Clinton did a great job of that, and he was still Democrat at the end of the day. I think this is the problem we need to focus on. It's not about politics. It's not about who wins, who loses at the end of the day. We need to focus on what we need as an American community. And that's where I'm seeing the leadership problem come up again and again. It's when we need somebody to vote for a health care bill or bring the bill up so we have a solution that actually gets results. That's where we need leadership. And at the end of the day, if we don't have leadership on the difficult issues, we don't have any leadership at all.
Mr. Platts?
Thank you. Whether Ryan believes that the reauthorization of child nutrition is partisan or not here is different than maybe in Washington, because it's very partisan. Unfortunately, there should be the Children's Health Insurance Plan that we passed last year expanded dramatically access to health insurance for children. One of, I think, 38 Republicans out of 176 or 177 voted yes. It was the right thing to do, even though my leadership was adamantly opposed. And something that, this past year I was under consideration with the Comptroller General of the United States, and honored to have the support of about a quarter of the Democratic caucus, 8 Democratic chairmen, and I think 25 or 26 Democratic subcommittee chairmen who said, we believe Todd Platts is the best job to be the top fiscal watchdog of our entire country. I guarantee you, if I was a partisan, this Democratic chairman and subcommittee chairman would not put their name on a letter to the President of the United States saying, this is who we want working on behalf of the American people. If I was a partisan Republican, they would have never signed that letter.
Okay, our next question has to do with energy policy. The order will be Mr. Sanders, Mr. Platts, Mr. Monaghan. And the question is this: where do you see America's energy policy in 10 years? And then the longer view, where do you see it in 25 years? So we start with Mr. Sanders.
Great. Well, as you may or may not have guessed, our energy policy is a bit of a mess. We haven't had good leadership on energy for decades. I think where we need to start is where our leadership has again taken us. Why is it, for example, that the oil industry gets $80 billion a year in subsidies, while the renewable resource industry gets 12? Aren't we trying to get off foreign oil? Are we trying to get off oil itself? This is the problem where our economy is being driven into the ground by the partisanship, in particular right now, the oil industry and other major Wall Street businesses. The energy policy debate is something that has to be developed on a bipartisan system. It should not be political. Where we get our electricity, where we get our power, doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. The energy industry, however, has a lot of money, and they spend a lot of money in our system. And that money is corrupted, because that means the oil industry, for example, can take much more than their fair share to get what they want. And this is where Mr. Platts and I would probably disagree, because he has voted about 70% of the time with the oil industry's lobby for their benefits. So these subsidies are something that he has supported in the past, and I'm assuming will continue to support. I personally advocate removing all those subsidies. I don't see any need for it. Exxon made $9 billion in 2009. I think they can afford to do their own research and development. The most important thing in energy policy long term is that we need to focus on getting off of oil. We need more renewable resources across the board. We need more research and development. I'd like to move that $80 billion into